Hey guys, Greg at Best Choice Trailers. We just got done unloading a load of Midsotas, and I wanted to take you for a walk around this one. This is the newly redesigned Midsota HV series. This is their bread and butter commercial grade dump trailer. Very well built. Love what they did to change this. This isn't just, you gotta understand the trailer industry, a lot of times a model year change, it's just a number on the VIN. It's the 10th digit of the VIN changes one letter. This is a total redesign, totally different product. It is pretty cool. So let's take a walk around. Pretty much about everything you see here is standard. I think the only thing extra on this would be your fork holders. Yeah, let's take a walk around it. Awesome setup. So up front, it switched from a 2-bolt to a 4-bolt coupler to your Demco style. Of course, your safety chains. You've got a 7-pin plug, standard as pretty much all modern trucks. This is a dual prong connection instead of a single, so if you ever bend one, you're good to go. One of the many Midsota little finish quality points, stubbed out for wiring, so literally that harness goes back in the frame. I don't know anybody really doing anything quite like that. That's a pretty premium feature. Here's another one. It's a 12K jack. A lot in the industry do that. You've got your inner adjustment leg via the pull handle there, which if you're ever in loose stone like this, turn your head, you get some stones coming at you. 4-bolt, so it's bolt on if you ever need to replace it. Yeah, a fair amount in the industry do that, but just little details. We get a lot in the industry that powder coat over grease zerks. Actually take the time to grease them, cover them up, keep them clean. It's just a lot of little details. You see a lot of that type of stuff through and through on this trailer. Telescopic hoist, that is new for the 25 model. You've got your tarp kit with your sail bar. A lot of times you might get a tarp, might be black iron, might be zinc or galvanized. But a lot of times you don't see a sail bar. Just a little detail helps keep that tarp straight and deploy it to the back of the trailer. So Midsota, one of the big differences they do in the industry, they use a heavy wall 4x6 box tube tongue frame. We'll show you that in a bit. A fair amount of the industry is going to I-beam, and I'll be honest, I like I-beam, but I-beam is more, I'll say, eye candy. That is the looks impressive, and I'm not saying it's not impressive. But box tube pound for pound, I think you'll find is very strong for a dump frame. It's been used many years. In fact, we've sold many dumps that use a 2x6 frame, and they've held up just fine over the years. This is a 4x6 frame, and it's also a heavy wall, which I guess next thing I'll point out, this trailer does come in at about 4,700 pounds. If you're looking for a lighter duty dump, we've got some of those. This is not it. This is weighing in about 800-900 pounds more than our lighter duty stuff or lightest duty stuff in this class. So let's go up to the toolbox to show you what's different. It's tread plate instead of poly. It's a completely different lockable box. If you ever need to replace it, easy to do so. Inside, instead of a group 24 battery, you've got a group 31 battery. Now, some would say, hey, that's great. What's that mean to me? This is a 210 RC or a 90 amp hour capacity. The typical group 24 that you often see is a 140. And I believe that comes out to 60 couple amp hours. This is what matters. This is how many amp hours you can get. So if you're running 98 amps on your pump, you're going to be able to run for an hour. Well, it's going to show you, typically see it here. Pumps, typically your upper limit's about 200 amps, give or take. So in theory, fully loaded, you're going to be able to run 30 minutes run time. So it depends what your cycle times and all that are. This time of year, wouldn't be surprised somebody out of that size battery might get 10, 12, 15 dumps. Winter time, you might get half that many. It just all depends. But what you really, I guess, need to know is group 31 battery, you're about a time and a half the size battery you would typically get on most vendors in the market. Gas shocks on this, and it's actually a dual gas shock setup. Light in the toolbox, now standard equipment. Being a telescopic hoist, you're going to be a power up, power down power up, gravity down hydraulic instead of power, which is why you're going to have this bigger reservoir, which is also going to lend to a bigger toolbox on this. One of the things that's exclusive to Midsota, I don't know if anybody else does this, your indicator module. So you'll know if there's ever anything wrong with the trailer. Tells you right on your module. Another neat feature on that, right now we're sitting at 12.5 Now, why might somebody want to know? When a power up, gravity down, you never really have to worry about actually overflowing the pump reservoir. And a power up, power down, if your battery goes dead, it's basically going to gravity down by opening a coil, then, you know, it spill out into your reservoir. On a gravity down, you really don't have to worry about that. That's more of a, hey, if you want to use it a handful of times in a day, you want to check, see where your battery level's at, push a button and boom. But anyway, that's your indicator module by Midsota. Awesome little detail. Like I said, don't have anybody else that we deal with that does that. In fact, I don't know anybody else that does it in the industry. Reinforcement on the top of the box standard. If you look behind the toolbox where your telescopic is, you've got a neat little chain tray built in to your telescopic hoist. You've got a 110 volt charger plug in for house current to keep that battery maintained. You've got your tarp kit with your sail bar, spring loaded, ball bearing, greasable, nice setup. Here's another one that's unique. I've never seen anybody do a stake pocket setup like this. It is really heavy. It's a thicker wall than I've seen, but the way it mounts, pretty cool setup. Also, this top rail, that's a 2x3 box tube top rail. So between this whole side has gotten much heavier. I don't have one of the old style before, but it was a straight wall 2-foot side. This corrugation adds a ton of strength. If you take and thump the old style, it's not going to sound like that. That adds a lot of strength. And then this top rail, like this sidewall, you can't deflect. Can't be said about all your dumps. This is a pretty stout top rail setup. So you've got the heavier stake pocket. I do like too that it just doesn't come down straight. It actually kicks back in, so it gives structure for anything that's going to sit on that. It's not just coming down and not supported by anything. It's actually coming back to that integrated keyway. I'm not a home builder, but I have built a home and you know, seen plenty built. You put this keyway in the side, it's going to add strength. If you've got a long straight wall in a house, same thing with a dump trailer, that keyway is going to give you a lot of strength in that sidewall. Before, tongue stopped up front. Now it's going to continue all the way back to your spring hangers. Fork holders changed. Much improved setup. Pretty cool. Before it was just tubes and you had your D-rings to tie down and secure. These, nothing left to do. Pretty slick setup on your fork tube holders. They also tie into the structure. I'll show you that with the bed up. Midsota bossed into them. Heavy duty fenders, they're going to wrap down a little bit farther in the front. You've got your bullet LED tied in. You've got your tread plate with a flared edge, and then one of the traditional Midsota little details, mud flap standard equip. Now if you come over here, you can get an idea of how heavy frame is. This is a well, the rear hinge. This is going to be a 4x4 tube heavy wall. And then look at the size of the hinging on that frame. It's pretty stout, 7-gauge floor as well. So a lot of times in the industry, you're gonna see a 10-gauge. 10-gauge would be 1/8 inch, 7-gauge is gonna be 3/8. It's about 2.5 pounds per square foot more. 714 dump comes out to, I believe, 98 feet. 98 feet times 2.5. You're adding about 250 pounds of additional steel in the floor. Now another thing, this is all full seam welded in. It's no stitch welds. You also notice it is a one-piece floor. It's not seamed together. So lots of upgrades. Rear corner post. This is one solid rear corner post. You've got your tarp sail bar sitting there. You've got automatic swing open latches. Again, zerts on everything. Just nice, clean. Rear support stand, standard equipment. Notice instead of black iron, it's coated. I'm not sure what that is, to be honest, if that's zinc or if that's, looks like zinc or galvanized. This is a true combo gate. You've got your pin at the bottom. You can see how heavy this new gate is, and the hinges just all ties together real nice. Automatic latching whenever I open it up here. And one thing I just appreciate with Midsota on these, everything fits. It fits, it works. Sounds crazy, but you'd be surprised we get dump trailers in that need work as soon as they come off the truck. This just came off the truck, and everything fits. Everything's greased. down to even the latch. You'd be surprised. We've had other brands that tried similar latches like this, and it just doesn't fit straight out of the gate. I can appreciate that because the whole trailer is designed with the customer in mind. Now, before I latch this, I want to show you too that keyway in the gate. That is a lot of strength to the gate without really adding weight, because you're not really adding more steel. You're just press braking it, putting extra bends in it, extra bends or extra strength. And zinc coated, I believe it's zinc coated hardware instead of being welded on. Just nice setup. Again, it's automatic. You've got your latches for your spreader chains. Again, if you look at those hinges, they're just a lot more substantial. It's that easy, guys. It really is. Literally, it's the first this thing's been open. Nothing that needed work, shimmed, powder coat scratched off of it, which actually I guess it's a good time to mention. This isn't a powder coated trailer. This is a painted trailer. I call it urethane. I think technically it's going to be poly, which is a version of a urethane paint. It's very durable. I would say, you know, everything with paint comes down to prep, but if it's properly prepped, I will take a urethane paint job any day of the week. Or some will call it wet coat. It's different types of wet. But very durable. Here you can see the inside wall. You can see, you know, this is important too. I want to point out, this is press brake into the wall. This isn't a straight wall and just welded on the outside. There's brands that do that as well. There's nothing I'll say wrong with that per se. If you want a cheaper way to do it rather than handle a big panel, you can just take a smaller remnant. But the downside to not putting it in the wall is you're losing the strength, and also water gets behind these over time, and then it runs down and rusts and whatnot. When it's all integrated into one panel, that's not the case. So again, super slick the way they've done these, reinforced on the D-ring. D-rings at the bottom of the wall instead of on the floor where stuff will get caught up on it. 5 D-rings as well. You've got one up front and center, and then you've got your rings up front on the floor. Ramps are undermount. Again, this is a nice heavy duty bumper on these. Typically this is 2x2. This is 2x4 on the bumper on these, and then the ramps are a lot wider. So you've got a nice wide ramp on these. Hey, another little detail actually I like on these, rather than have a fold down flap, we've sold these over the years, never really cared for the style. Some brands have changed, a lot still unfortunately use it, but they've got a hinge at the bottom, and what we find are some don't have grease zerks. The ones that do, some customers don't use them anyway, and they seize up over time. This is really slick. For winter, cold weather, you know, months, anywhere up north, you don't have snow that's accumulating up here against that gate. It'll come out. Very simple design, very effective on the ramps. Some might say, why would they do that? Well, if you're in a winter climate, you'll understand when you start getting ice and snow and that accumulating up against that. But again, no flap there that's going to seize up over time. So you can tell the people that designed this trailer use it up north. Nothing wrong with the Southern Built trailers. We sell a lot of them. We like what they do. Great people. But you just can't understand it if you don't live in the climate. A lot of little stuff that happens when you go to use these over the winter that you just, I guess, can't understand if you don't experience it. Let's go ahead and put this up. I'll give you a better look at your indicator module. Typically, you're going to get about 20 foot of cord on this. We do have wireless available as well. That'd be one of, I'll say, the only options. They've done a lot. They've done a lot on these. Wireless remote be one of the, I'll say, few things you could really add. Here's a shot of your 4x6 mainframe heavy wall. Again, tongue, fish plate gust, come back to the spring hanger. That's different for 2025. 3-stage telescopic hoist. Now some might say, why would I want a telescopic hoist? Well, nobody's been doing telescopic hoists for at least 13, 14 years because we've been selling them that long. And the rest of the industry, I'll say, really kind of started doing them, they've been around for a while, but most of the industry really hasn't done anything for the last year or two. So I guess we've been answering this question for a while for folks, and the answer is fairly simple. If you're under mount on your pistons, the first thing you have to do is redirect force, because you're going to be horizontal trying to go vertical. It's kind of inefficient in and of itself. Next thing you're gonna experience is your biggest hurdle is getting started. So a lot of times if you got a dual piston or a scissor, that's a single stage hoist. That's a 3-stage hoist. It's got the most oomph in stage 1 whenever you need to get started. Then of course you're gonna neck down on stage 2. It's gonna get a little faster till you get to stage 3, and that'll be your fastest yet. At the beginning, it's going to be a little bit slower than a dual piston or a scissor, but again, speed normally isn't the priority. Dumping the load is. By the time you get to the end, it's actually going to be quicker, so your net cycle time is going to be about the same. Telescopic is super efficient, so besides not having to redirect that force, it's a 3-speed instead of a 1-speed. It's also got all the leverage in the world. You're all the way to the front. You're vertical, trying to go vertical. A scissor hoist with nearly every brand in the market, if you look, is going to mount at the front of the fender. And on a dual piston lift, it's going to mount at the midpoint of the fender. I guarantee every one I've ever seen is within about 2 inches. You've got way more leverage on the telly. And then typically on a dual piston or a scissor, you're going to be power up, power down. There's nothing wrong with that. On the telescopic, you're pretty much always, I've never seen a telescopic. In fact, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any existing. There's probably something out there, but they're all that I've ever seen gravity down. So you're going to save some battery there as well. So telescopic, what we've seen over the years, there's really nothing that it won't lift that should be on the trailer. So it'll fully be able to lift the legal payload and then some. If you're a little bit tongue heavy on a normal dump, we've noticed that you sacrifice about a ton of lift capacity. We've tested a 5/16 scissor hoist, which used to be very common. They're rated for 6.9. If you load it tongue heavy, you're only going to get about 6 tons. Telescopic hoist with all that leverage, it seems to be impacted a lot less. So again, all the upgrades they've done, probably the single biggest one would just be telescopic hoist. Now, what does all that mean to the customer? Well, if you got a more efficient hoist, besides being able to lift what you're going to want it to lift, you're going to be able to get more than likely quite a few more cycles out of it. What do I mean by that? Telescopic hoist are about 100% efficient. Scissors, they say, are about 60. Dual pistons are about 40. So let's just say on a dual piston, you get 5 cycles out of this. In theory, you might get as many as 10 on a telescopic. Time of year is going to play into it. Weight that you've got in it's going to play into it, etc. But you're going to get quite a bit more. Now, what does that mean to the end user? This has a 110-volt charger, but we talk to customers regularly, and what we experience is if you've got a scissor hoist or especially a tele hoist, oftentimes the average user does not have to use the 110-volt charger. If you're a heavy user, telescopic instead of, say, a scissor or a dual piston might be the difference between you having to supplementally charge it periodically. But again, you've got a voltage indicator on this, makes it easier from that regard as well. But to go with all the other features, the telescopic hoist kind of makes this the premium. Ramps on these are also going to be a 4-inch ramp. Historically, they were a 3. You can see here a 3-inch channel ramp on a traditional 80-inch dump ramp. Most in the industry are going to rate to 3,500 pound a piece, 7,000 pound a pair. And some folks say, well, my equipment's more than 7. Yes, I understand. Most equipment's also 2 axles, so it depends on your axle placement and whatnot. If it's heavy equipment, we recommend that you back it on. That way you get more of a 50-50 weight split. If you pull it on, you're going to be more like a 65-35. 4-inch channel ramps, I believe I've seen ratings at like 4,800 pounds a ramp. So again, for your bigger equipment, especially if you get this trailer with maybe 8K axles, you've got, say, a Kubota SVL 97, something that weighs in that 12,000 pound mark, certainly advisable to get a trailer. It's got heavier ramps, rear jack stands, etc. So again, 4-inch channel ramp instead of 3 is another difference. Underside's going to be braced out different because it's a telescopic, not the scissor. And then underneath, you're also going to be framed out different. Telescopics push points are going to be different than scissor. So again, that's why it's all framed out a little bit different. You've got your safety prop. Then whenever you go to the fork holders, you've also got additional crossbars underneath the trailer for support. Inside the frame, you'll notice it's covered on both sides. Again, you get a better look at the, I'll call it a chain tray on either side of the hoist. If you have any questions on this trailer or any of our other trailers, feel free to give us a shout. 717-220-4220, or you can visit us on the web at bestchoicetrailers.com. Thanks for looking.